Sometimes the most broken souls find each other when the world has already turned its back on them. Eli Mercer was 55 years old when he learned what it meant to truly have nothing. The drought had taken his land, debt had taken his cattle, and the grave on the hill behind the old house had taken his wife. All that remained was a rusted Ford pickup, a box of tools, and a heart that felt worn thin from too many quiet losses. On a dry morning in early fall, Eli sat in the cab of his truck at the Hartwell livestock auction, staring at a folded paper that no longer felt real. The foreclosure notice had come 6 months earlier, stamped and signed, polite in tone, but final in meaning. The Double M Ranch was gone. 3 generations ended with him. He remembered mornings when coffee smelled strong in the kitchen, and Martha stood at the window watching him saddle up. She had loved the land the same way she loved him, quietly, fully, without asking for much in return. The drought had crept in slow and cruel. Springs dried up, grass turned to dust, cattle weakened. Eli sold them one by one, promising Martha it would turn around. She never complained. She worked longer hours at the diner, her smile tired but steady. When her heart finally gave out during the second winter, Eli buried more than his wife. He buried his future. Now he lived out of his truck, working fences and hauling hay for whoever needed strong hands. That morning he had come to the auction hoping for day work and a free lunch. Nothing more. The auction yard buzzed with voices and dust. Old ranchers talked prices and weather. Younger men watched with worry in their eyes. Eli recognized faces worn by the same losses he carried. Good men pushed down by bad years. Jake Morrison, the auctioneer, spotted him near the ring. They had known each other since boyhood. "You looking for work today, Eli?" Jake asked gently. Eli nodded. Jake offered $50 in lunch to mend fence later. Eli accepted. Small mercies mattered now. The auction moved along as usual. Cattle sold. A few horses passed through. Eli drifted in thought, pulled back by memories he never invited. Then shouting rose from the back pens. Men cursed and laughed nervously. A crowd gathered. Eli followed, curious more than concerned. Behind the pens sat a steel cage on a flatbed trailer. Inside it was the largest wolf Eli had ever seen. The animal stood tall and still, its coat gray and silver, thick as winter smoke. Its eyes were amber, sharp and calm at the same time. Not wild with fear, not broken, just watching. "This thing's trouble," someone muttered. Ray Hutchins, a trapper, stood nearby wiping sweat from his neck. "Caught him up in the mountains." Lone wolf, no pack. Thought maybe someone would want him for a zoo or private land. Jake cleared his throat. "Starting bid is $200. No one spoke. Men who had faced bulls and storms avoided the wolf's gaze. There was something about him that made people uneasy. Not anger, not madness. Something deeper. Eli stepped closer without realizing it. The wolf's eyes locked onto him. In that moment, the noise faded. Eli saw something familiar in that stare. Loss. Endurance. A refusal to bow even when beaten. He rested his hand on the cage bars. The wolf did not growl, did not bare teeth. He simply stepped closer. The silence stretched. No bids came. Ray looked frustrated. Jake looked relieved. Eli felt his fingers curl around the last $20 bill in his pocket. That money was meant for gas, and maybe a warm place to sleep. He thought of Martha's voice. Everything happens for a reason. He stepped forward. "I'll take him." Heads turned. Jake stared. "Eli, the bid's $200. Eli pulled out the bill. Then he reached under his shirt and lifted the chain from his neck. Martha's wedding ring glinted in the sun. This, too. A hush fell. Every man there understood what that ring meant. Ray hesitated. "That ring's worth more than $200. "Then it's enough," Eli said. The wolf never looked away. Jake sighed softly and nodded. The deal was made. Whispers followed Eli as the cage was secured to his truck. Some called him foolish. Others called him lost. Samuel Price, an old rancher, stepped close. "You got a plan for that animal?" he asked. Eli looked at the wolf. Same plan I had with my wife. Patience, respect. Samuel shook his head, half smiling. As Eli drove away, the wolf rode quietly, alert but calm. Eli found himself talking as the road stretched ahead. "Name's Eli," he said. "Guess you need one, too." The wolf's ears moved. "My father used to tell stories about Daniel Boone, man who survived wilderness by listening more than talking." Eli smiled faintly. "How about Boone?" The wolf's tail shifted once. Eli camped that night near a creek under cottonwoods. He cooked beans and coffee. Boone watched closely but without fear. When Eli offered water, the wolf drank. When he offered food, Boone took it gently from his hand. Something settled between them, fragile, real. Days passed like careful steps. Boone stayed close, free to leave, but choosing not to. Eli crafted a simple leather collar and placed it around Boone's neck. The wolf allowed it. On the third morning, Jake Morrison arrived with an offer. His foreman had quit. "I need someone who knows cattle," Jake said. "There's a line shack you can use." Eli hesitated. "I come with complications." Jake studied Boone. "Bring him. We'll see." At the ranch, Hans stepped back at first. But during the first cattle move, something strange happened. Eli walked with Boone instead of riding. The cattle moved calmly. No panic, no scatter. Boone positioned himself with quiet precision. The herd followed. The job finished in half the time. By evening, fear had turned to respect. The line shack became home. Each night, Eli and Boone walked the land. And each night, Eli noticed odd things. Predators stayed away. Cattle returned on their own. Animal paths reappeared where none had been used for years. One evening, Eli found tracks along a creek. Deer, coyotes, all following the same route. "You got friends," Eli murmured. That night, coyotes howled in patterns that felt almost ordered. Boone listened but did not answer. A week later, missing cattle appeared at a gate that should have been unreachable. At the creek, Eli found stones placed like steps, forming a crossing no man had built. Boone sat nearby, watching. Eli felt a chill. Something was happening, and it had only just begun. The changes on the Morrison ranch did not stop, they spread. At first, the men noticed small things. Water troughs that stayed full longer than they should. Calves born stronger than expected. Coyotes seen at a distance but never attacking. It was as if the land itself had decided to breathe again. Eli noticed it most during the evening walks with Boone. Wherever they went, the ground seemed to soften. Old trails appeared under grass that had been dead for years. Birds followed them from fence post to fence post, watching, listening. Boone was not acting like a trained animal. He never waited for commands. He moved with purpose, choosing paths Eli would never have thought to take. When Eli followed, good things happened. One morning, Jake rode out with worry written deep in his face. "Eli," he said, dismounting near the lion shack, "we've got company. Corporate company." Eli felt something tighten in his chest. "Name's Apex Development," Jake continued. "They're offering big money for ranches all through the valley, way more than land's worth, even drought land." Eli remembered Samuel Price's warning at the auction. "What do they want with it?" Eli asked. Jake shook his head. "That's the trouble. They won't say. Just smiles and contracts." That same afternoon, black tire tracks appeared on the ranch road. Boone noticed them before Eli did. His body stiffened. A low sound rolled in his chest. Not loud, but serious. "They've been here," Eli said quietly. That night, Eli spread a rough map on his table. He marked places where strange things had happened. The returned cattle, the stone crossing, the new springs. A pattern formed. All the changes followed the paths he and Boone walked. Eli stared at the map long into the night. "You're not just helping me," he said softly. "You're fixing something." Boone's eyes reflected the lantern light, steady and knowing. 2 days later, Apex Development came in person. Victoria Sterling stepped out of a black SUV like she owned the land already. She wore a sharp suit and a smile that never reached her eyes. "I represent Apex Development," she said to Jake. "We're prepared to make an offer you can't refuse." Jake folded his arms. "This ranch isn't for sale." Sterling smiled thinner. "Everything is for sale under the right conditions." Boone stood beside Eli, silent but alert. Sterling noticed him and paused. "That animal," she said, "is dangerous." "He's protective," Eli replied. Sterling's eyes lingered on Boone a second too long. Then she turned away. That night, Eli dreamed of water running where there had been none. He woke before dawn to the sound of rain that was not rain, just wind moving through leaves that had not existed weeks before. A week later, Eli took a day off and drove back to the Double M Ranch. He needed Martha's things, her journals, pieces of her he had left behind. The house felt smaller, empty, dusty. Boone followed him inside with careful steps. In Martha's study, Eli found something unexpected. A leather-bound notebook hidden behind her garden journals. Inside were notes about animal behavior, old stories, names of elders from the nearby reservation. One entry froze Eli's breath. "The land chooses its guardians when the balance is broken." Eli sat heavily in the chair. A truck pulled into the yard. An old man stepped out, long gray hair braided, eyes deep and calm. Joseph Crow Feather. "I felt the change," the man said. "The guardian has returned." Boone approached Joseph and lowered his head. Not submission. Respect. Joseph looked at Eli. "Your wife knew. She listened when the land spoke." Before Eli could ask more, another vehicle arrived, Victoria Sterling. Her smile was gone. "This property is under review," she said coldly. "And so is the Morrison Ranch." Boone growled. Not loud. "Enough." Sterling stepped back. "This isn't over," she said and drove away. Joseph stayed. He spoke of old agreements between land and life, of wolves that guarded balance when humans forgot their place. "He needs a partner," Joseph said, looking at Eli. "One who walks in both worlds." Eli thought of Martha, her quiet studies, her faith in him. Back at the Morrison Ranch, Apex returned with lawyers and officials. Papers were waived, threats spoken politely. Then Boone did something no one expected. Animals gathered. Deer, coyotes, hawks, even cattle stood still, watching. They formed lines, circles, barriers, no aggression, just presence. The officials could not move forward. Phones recorded everything. Sterling left furious. That night, Joseph returned with elders and warnings. "They are after the water," he said. "They created the drought." Proof came days later in stolen reports and whispered truths. The valley's suffering had been planned. Eli felt rage rise, cold and steady. At dawn, helicopters circled. Apex came in force. Eli stood beside Boone at the mother spring Joseph had shown him, the source of everything. Animals surrounded them. Sterling stepped forward with papers in her hands. "This land is under emergency authority," she declared. Boone stepped forward. He breathed once. The papers burned to ash. Silence fell. Clouds rolled in fast. Rain began to fall, heavy and true. The drought broke. Sterling retreated. The valley drank. As night fell, Boone stood on a ridge, wind in his fur. Eli knew this was not the end. It was the beginning of a final stand. And Boone was not done yet. Morning came slow and quiet after the rain, like the land itself was resting. Mist floated low over the valley. Streams that had been dry for years whispered again through grass and stone. The Morrison Ranch smelled of wet earth and new life. Eli stood outside the line shack, boots sinking slightly into softened ground. He had not slept much. Too many thoughts. Too many changes moving too fast. Boone stood beside him, calm and steady, watching the valley as if reading a story written only for his eyes. By noon, the valley filled with people. Ranchers came first. Families who had lived on the land for generations. Some arrived angry, some arrived afraid. All arrived ready to listen. Joseph Crow Feather came with elders from the reservation. They walked slowly, with purpose, carrying stories older than fences and deeds. Then came the outsiders, reporters, environmental groups, lawyers who spoke in careful words but listened closely when Eli told his story. By late afternoon, Victoria Sterling returned. This time, she did not come smiling. She arrived with state officials, security men, and documents thick enough to fill briefcases. Her voice carried authority, but it shook beneath the surface. "This land is now under federal review," she announced. "You are interfering with lawful proceedings." Eli stepped forward. "We are standing on our home," he said. "You are the ones interfering." Sterling pointed toward the animals gathered across the fields. "This is manipulation," she snapped. "This is staged." Joseph spoke calmly. "You cannot stage truth." Sterling ignored him and turned to the officials. "Remove them." The security men hesitated. Boone stepped forward. He did not bare teeth. He did not charge. He stood. Behind him, animals moved as one. Deer closed gaps. Birds filled the sky. Wolves appeared at the ridgeline, silent and watching. The officials stopped. Cameras recorded everything. Phones rang across the valley and far beyond it. That night, the story spread faster than any contract ever could. By morning, federal investigators arrived, not with threats but with questions. They listened. They examined reports leaked by locals, water records, dam operations, artificial restrictions that had caused the drought. The truth came apart piece by piece. Apex development was shut down within days. Accounts were frozen. Permits revoked. Arrests followed quietly. Victoria Sterling left the valley for the last time without a word. The rain continued. Weeks passed, then months. Grass returned thick and green. Springs ran strong. Wildlife flourished in ways even the elders had not seen in their lifetimes. Jake Morrison called a meeting. "We need to protect this place forever," he said. The valley agreed. They formed a sanctuary, land placed under protection, water rights locked away from greed. They asked Eli to lead it. He tried to refuse. "I'm just a cowboy," he said. Joseph shook his head. "You are a guardian." Eli accepted. The Mercer Boone Wildlife Sanctuary was born. Visitors came from far away to see what balance looked like, to witness predators and prey sharing land without fear, to feel something old and honest in the air. Boone came and went as he pleased, sometimes gone for weeks, sometimes resting near the mother spring, watching over what he had healed. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Boone approached Eli with a look that needed no words. "You're leaving again," Eli said softly. Boone touched his nose to Ellie's hand.
"I know," Eli whispered. "You've got more work."
The wolf turned toward the mountains and disappeared into shadow. Eli did not feel loss. He felt gratitude. Years passed. The sanctuary thrived. Children learned how land and life work together. Ranchers found new ways to live with nature instead of against it. On a quiet fall day, Eli returned to Hartwell's livestock auction. A small coyote sat trembling in a cage, unwanted, afraid. Eli stepped forward. "I'll take her," he said. The crowd murmured. History repeated itself. As Eli drove home, he glanced at the ridge. Boone stood there, watching. The wolf lifted his head and howled once, not a cry of sorrow, a song of balance, a promise kept. And in that sound, Eli heard Martha's voice, gentle and sure. "Everything happens for a reason."